And what was involved getting Molly Maid up and running in the UK? Over to you.
Numerous things. I think the most exciting thing was I was given a brand to build, and that was the most exciting thing, that you had the whole of the UK to build a brand. So that was my motivation, and I'll probably cry because that does make me cry. So I've got some notes here because I forget lots of my bits now.
About the system, you said.
Well,
Take us back to when Malcolm contacted you.
Okay.
And he had an opportunity, didn't he? What did Malcolm say?
Well, I started going out with Malcolm, and I was working in a squash club, and Malcolm thought it was a good idea for me to run Molly Maid. I knew nothing about anything at all in Molly Maid, nothing. But I liked the challenge, and I thought I'll go ahead. And
how did he position the job? How did he position the job to you, Pam?
Part-time.
Part-time job. And was it, Pam?
No, darling. For the last how many years, most of the time I was working 7 days a week at exhibitions and whatever, and building the brand.
So he called you. He offered you a part-time job. Clearly, it wasn't a part-time job. And then you went across to Canada.
Oh yes.
So take us through that. You went across to Canada to learn the ropes. So what happened in Canada?
Confusion. I was very confused. I couldn't make out who I was. Because you're going to run a franchise company, but then you've got to learn to be a franchisee. So half the time I was thinking I was one of those franchisee, and then half the time I was thinking I was the franchisor. So it was quite confusing, and it did take a little while to get the balance right on who I actually was at the time.
So you had to think about those two different sides.
Yeah.
And you got introduced to the system. Was it easy to translate? And, a lot of dollars?
Well, the dollar thing was most confusing. I'd never worked with dollars before, and I found that, maths is not a good thing for me to get involved in, and I found it most confusing. But I think, you learn a system, and the most important thing, I think, with Molly Maid is the system is absolutely sound. And that's what, I used to promote with all the franchise owners, obviously the importance of system. Because with the Molly Maid system, the customer pays at the time of the clean. You pay the maids the week after, and the week after that, you pay your suppliers and cars. So really, there should be no shortage of money in any business at all, because you're collecting it all the time. So I did say to a franchise owner's husband at one stage, he was looking for a franchise, and I said, try and see if there's anything out there that compares to Molly Maid. And he came back and he said there was nothing really that had that solid system that he could really operate. There was always problems with collecting money and
So Pam, we get set up, and then early on, what did you focus on with new franchisees, to new franchise owners to set up their business? What became the most important aspect to you?
Well, the most important thing was that they eventually earned money.
Yeah.
So we had the 6-month reviews, so we could make sure they were on track with system, which I've just explained what the system is. So making sure they were on system, that they were earning money, that they were making profits, and that they were on the right track. And I always used to say, I'm going to give you 2 years of my life, dedicated 2 years, looking after you. I want you to be successful. You do know after 2 years what you should be doing. And it is a huge learning curve. If you've never run a business before, it's a huge learning curve. You have to be so good at so many things. And it takes time. It takes time to get good at it all.
And the recruitment of staff, Pam, I mean, you highlighted to me when we spoke before this that staff were one of the central parts.
Yeah.
So what aspects of staffing did you feel were particularly important upon recruitment of new staff?
Well, I always say, we had our own franchise for a while, but I always used to say, ask all the formal questions, and then afterwards just say to the girl, we're going to relax now and have a cup of tea and blah, blah, blah. And then you find out so much from that person at the end of the interview. And you want to obviously have the right person for the job, but sometimes you have to, if you're desperate for staff, you have to try people out and see if they're any good. But I think the main thing with Molly Maid is, are you treating your staff like you would like to be treated? Because at the end of the day, and fair but firm, these are the rules of the game. Tell them straight away that the system, how it works, everything about the system, but fair but firm. And then I think staff appreciate that very much so.
I need a range of staff, don't you, Pam, because of the different range of customers you're saying. So you need a staff member that can get on with the lady of the manor.
Oh, yes.
And a staff member that can also get on with the lady in the local council estate.
But I think most franchise owners will tell you when they're estimating, they are going to put that certain customer with the team. I think most of you do that. I think it's in the back of your head that that's what you're thinking of.
And so you're recruiting, you're building your business. You mentioned before about the review meetings you had with franchise owners.
Yeah.
Planning. You've always been a big advocate of planning, Pam.
Absolutely.
So how does planning look in terms of goal setting and things?
Well, you have to have a goal. You can't just meander through life with a business and not have a goal. Even if you have a month's goal and then maybe a year goal.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people maybe have a 4-year goal or whatever. But I think you must have something to head for. And in Molly Maid, we've always had those challenges and those targets.
Yeah.
You know, years and years ago, I used to have them on the wall and write them in. You know, this was the target for this month and that month and whatever. So franchise owners must have targets.
And they're planning for their business, but obviously we've got multiple routes of different teams, and route planning, really even still in the early days, and being efficient on route planning was equally important. You had a bit of a phrase that you've got for that.
Well, every time your wheels roll, you're losing money. Because the car is going round and round in a circle, and you're not making any money, are you?
Yeah.
You're just burning petrol. So route utilisation is so important.
Yeah. Yeah.
Route planning, and sometimes it's very difficult because you want to plan a route with customers and they might not want to be on that particular day. But I think there are ways of saying to people, you know, I can tell you, Mrs. Jones, if I send the staff in at 4 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon, I can reduce the price a little bit for you. Would that be helpful? So you can manipulate
to suit
sounds
you.
Really bad, but you are, you know, making sure you're running the routes efficiently by making sure that the customers are fitting into those routes.
Yeah.
And there's ways of doing that as well.
Yeah. So planning, route planning, having those goals, keep recruiting, part of your mantra.
And of course, it makes the girls earn more money as if they're cleaning all the time instead of driving around the countryside.
Look, Pam, you know, we could sit here, you know, obviously Pam's here all day, right? But Pam, you know, before we go on from the early days and talk about the future, Pam, you know, what would you say your sort of, in terms of final words, what would you say are the most important?
I don't know.
There you go.
What am I saying?
At the bottom there. What would you say are the most?
Oh, here we go. I know what it is. Stay positive. Well, have a positive mental attitude. I think it was Simone Beresford who was really running, when she first started the business, really running around like a blue-ass fly, like you are in the very beginning. And obviously, you could get out in uniform in an evening, and I said to her, you know, why don't you play some really rousing music? Now, I know this works because I was very honoured to be able to go to Disney privately to see how they ran Disney. And the way they operate the crowds, it's all done by music. So music is a huge, huge way to control crowds, number one. Also to control minds. So I know Simone said, and she probably might have forgotten this, but she said, I play the gladiators, whoa! I'm going out for those estimates. So you see, it's your mental attitude. Might have a really bad day. You know, customers cancelled, a maid's jack, oh God, I don't want to go out tonight. But you have to go out, you have to do it.